So welcome everyone. Welcome NNethra, welcome Yuri. And I'm Sagara from Centro Upaya. I don't think my name is there. No, this just says Centro Upaya. So yeah, I'm Sagara. And Centro Upaya and myself in particular, we're absolutely delighted to be hosting this event, both the live and the course that will follow after. NNethra is an anthropologist, coach based in and writer based in California, and her work is grounded in a unique method that combines non-violent communication, ethnography, and design thinking. And Yuri is a designer from Boston, and he is a human-centered designer who works with confusing, contradictory stories. When he's not working with organizations, he's periodically doing lectures and participatory design and policy design in all sorts of places. Stanford, you see Berkeley, and he's in the executive education program at Harvard Business School and around the world. And this workshop, I wanted us to do this live session because, well, NVC isn't that well known in Portugal. And I also get a sense that the two of you have also developed your own approach to NVC. So I thought it would be great for us to get some sense of the course, maybe even a little bit of practice. We see how that goes. I'm kind of curious. I have a personal question, which is, how did the two of you come to discover this possibility of connecting in communication even when it's difficult, using the title of the course? So I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sagara, for hosting us and for having this event and for hosting the course as well. It's truly a delight to be here. And I can get us started with like a little story about sort of how I came to NVC and rediscovered it many years later, and very much through having difficult conversations one after the other. So I remember I actually first learned NVC or encountered it when I was 15 years old, sort of with all my teenage anxieties. And then in college, I took a workshop with Marshall Rosenberg in New York. And I remember that until that time, I had felt this sense inside myself that I had to become something or someone that other people would like, that I had to fix myself, I had to, sound good, I had to perform, that whatever was inside me actually had to be hidden so that I could be liked. And the first experience I had of being in one of these workshops was the person I was speaking to was listening to me, and I was sharing things that were not things I would normally share. And they were vulnerable things, and they were difficult things and challenging things. And there was no judgment. And there was actually deep curiosity about how I was feeling. And for the first time, I think in my life, I had this sense that it's okay to be a mess. Not only is it okay to be a mess, but there's something beautiful underneath that mess that I can understand in the presence and company of someone else. And suddenly my own pain, my own vulnerability, my own fragility felt less scary for me because it was held together with someone else. And go ahead.
No, it just came up a sense of how beautiful that is.
Yeah, and so I had this really powerful experience, and immediately after that workshop, I had a conversation with someone I was very, very close to, and he was incredibly upset with me. And there was just a tremendous amount of anger that he was experiencing. And I just remembered the feeling of being heard that I had experienced in the workshop. And I thought, what if I just bring this to him? And so rather than defending myself, rather than arguing against him, rather than doing any of that stuff that I would normally do, I just heard him and checked in using some of the tools that we're going to teach in this course. And at the end of that conversation, not only did the conflict go away, but we went into a depth of connection and intimacy we'd never experienced together before. And so that was when I realized it doesn't actually matter whether you start with connection or whether you start with conflict. If you bring a certain capacity to listen, a certain openness and curiosity, you can get there. And that was my kind of beginning to this work. Does that answer your question, Sagar?
Oh, totally. Thank you for sharing that. Very much so. What about you, Yuri?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to kind of continue on, I think, from the sentiment that NNethra left off with, which is kind of that sense of curiosity and openness, and wanting to understand, even if you're in conflict or if you're in connection already with someone. The world that I come from is from the world of human-centered design. And so what that basically means is going out into communities that are facing some sort of trouble, kind of in the industry. Maybe there's some power or something that's keeping them from expressing themselves the way they want. And what you're doing is, you're sitting there with a person you've never met before and trying to learn about their life as much as you possibly can to understand, well, what are some of the, what are the systems that affect them deeply and what can we do about them? And effectively what happens is that over the course of, however long this interview goes, be it 90 minutes, 2 hours, you're forming this bond. And at least as a designer, you have to go and you have to create this connection with a person so that they actually tell you about what's really happening for them. Just a quick example, I was doing a project where we were trying to create affordable, actually free college education for adults in Detroit, in Michigan. And Detroit, for those of you who don't know, is a very, very segregated community. It's not the best city in the world. It's good in a lot of ways, but there's a lot of people facing a lot of inequality there. And so we're hoping to get people who are, single moms, people who tried going to college, couldn't afford it, something happened in their family, they had to go back, a way to go and, get educated again. And so, you're sitting with this group of people and they're saying like, yeah, I just didn't want to go. It's tiring, it's bothersome. But then over the course of 90 minutes, it's how do you learn about what's actually going on behind the words that they're telling you? And how do you get a person to open up to you in that way? And it's not just a one-sided way, but how do you open up as a human being yourself so that you have that bond with them? And so that's the world that I come from. And now NNethra and I have somehow magically our paths have crossed. And we realized how much overlap there is in terms of where NNethra comes from, where it's a very interpersonal, very familiar interaction. In my world, where it feels a little bit more clinical, but then through the way we've mixed our both practice and we've seen where things have combined and where there are overlaps on how do you actually create the skills where people can now teach from, learn from, to actually now approach any sorts of situations and create those sorts of moments of connection with other people, either or maybe sometimes it's just within themselves, or maybe it's sometimes in a group, in a community, just between you and a friend, in order to create something new between the two of you.
And I'm guessing that's what we will be learning during the course.
Absolutely.
Yes, very much so. And the thing that we do in the course is actually not just teach people skills, Because Yuri comes from a very practice-based, hands-on world of design. And in my experience of learning in VC, also it's one thing to understand the theory or the concepts, and it's another thing to actually be in front of an angry person, and then or a person who's angry in the moment, right? And then like know how to navigate that situation, or deal with your own anger, which is sometimes the thing that gets in the way of connection. So it's very experiential, it's very practice-based. And what we try to do is provide people with a very low stakes context where they can practice whatever situations they have outside of the actual context that they're struggling with. So it's a kind of time out of time, a space away from conflict, where you can dive deeper into what's going on for you.
Okay, makes sense.
So just to add on a little bit, for us, I think, it's very easy for us to say words like, oh, connection, all of these exercises, and then have it almost either fall on deaf ears or sort of wave our hands and say, this is the magic wand you need. That's something that we definitely avoid doing. And one thing that's very important for us is to actually see what is alive in the people who are joining us in the course and what's alive for them in the moment, and then work with what's actually happening. So for us, a lot of the way we actually structure class is if we are, for instance, we want to talk about connection. In the class, we want to create that sense of connection for everyone so that you feel it and you understand it like in your bones as to what it actually is. And only after that then we talk about, well, let's actually analyze it. What's actually happening? What's going on? And we've seen time and time again that this actually empowers people to try some of the things that we maybe cover in class, maybe some of the skills, try it in, either with friends, family. We don't push anyone past any that they don't want to do anything that's too uncomfortable. But then we build time in class so that when people come back and they say, hey, you know what, I tried this thing, here's what happened. And we break it down and and not that we troubleshoot, but we actually analyze what's actually going on, and making sure that when we say words like connection, you know what it feels like in class, you know what it feels like in your life, and what we've actually spent time analyzing and working with what's alive for each person. And that's almost like the foundation for the course.
So it's really very experientially based.
Yes.
And before I was talking with NNethra about this live session, I did wonder about the possibility of us having something of a taste of what's to come, so to speak. Do you think that's still on, NNethra? That we could...
we would love to sort of give people an experience of what the classroom environment is like, and teach you a skill that you can take with you and try it out. So this skill is called reflective listening, and it is a way of giving empathy. And what we'll do is we'll sort of walk you through the basics of it, and then give you 5 minutes and pair you up in a breakout room, and you'll have just 5 minutes to each speak, and the other person will get the chance to listen. And it's not an exam, you're not on the spot, there's nothing, there is no pressure at all to get anything right, because there is no such thing in this mindset. And so it's a very simple tool, which is that one person speaks and the other person just listens for like, what is the heart and core of what this person said, and then just repeat it back. Yuri, can we quickly demo it?
Yes.
Do you want to say a few things about how your morning went, or anything you want? And I'll
Sure. Okay, here, I'll give you one from actually something that happened to me this morning. So I was, as usual, I'll always have these meetings back to back with this team that I work with. And, it's the holidays. I've just come back from a little mini vacation for the New Year's, and immediately everyone's just kind of running full steam ahead with all of these terms, and I'm almost like taken aback and in shock about it. And I remember just sitting there in this meeting, just completely, I don't know, like it's frazzled, and I was quiet the entire time almost, because I just didn't even know what to say.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. So it just sounds like, so let me see if I can capture what you said. So like you were on vacation for a while, and you came back, and the first thing is that there's this like full on meeting mode, and people are using all these terms and jargon. And you said, it's like going full steam ahead, and you're just like in shock and frazzled. And there's just this like feeling of, I just want to be very quiet right now.
Yeah.
Did I get that? Was at the heart of it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, it's like, it was like a feeling of, it's not just being quiet, but it also felt just like emotionally distant. And this is people I've worked with for years now, but still I felt like in that moment, even though I haven't seen them for a week, in that moment it was like a quiet and sort of like a, I don't even recognize any of you anymore. It was a really strange feeling.
Yeah, so it's this strangeness of encountering people who you see very frequently, and at the same time not just being quiet, but feeling this gap, right, this distance, to the point that it's like, do I even know you? Do I even recognize you? Like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's do a quick timeout. So what NNethra was doing with reflective listening, and I'm sure you heard it, but just to kind of put a pin in it, is that, and the way the breakout rooms will work is that we'll pair everybody up, and one person can talk about a situation where maybe they had a difficult conversation, or maybe in a situation from work or with your family, of just a time that, maybe didn't seem to go as well. And periodically you can take breaks, and the other person, your partner, that your entire job is to really just repeat back, as NNethra did, the heart of what you heard in what the other person just said. And not to put any other spin on it or anything, but the way that reflective listening really works is just listening intently for what's alive in the person, what they're saying. And we'll spend a couple of minutes kind of going back and forth. So one person will, it's called the speaker. One person's going to be the speaker for a few minutes, and the other person is going to be repeating back. And then we'll send out a message when you're supposed to switch. And then the other person will have a chance to be the speaker, and then they'll talk about a quick situation that they had in their lives, and the other person's going to become the listener. Once that's over, we'll come back. We'll see what actually happened between you two, because I'm sure there's going to be something interesting is going to start happening between the speaker and the listener in both cases. And we'll get into that right after we come back from the breakout rooms.
And just one little tip is things to suspend, which is very hard to do sometimes, which is, you're not expected to give advice. You're not expected to say, oh my God, I had a story just like that. And so this is can be a very unusual thing of just all you're doing in that moment is, this is what I heard, did I get it? So we will do this for 10 minutes, and I'll open the rooms right now. And one of us, there's an odd number, so one of us will join someone in here.
NNethra, may I suggest something also, that maybe the speaker speaks in small chunks, just to keep it more at ease. Otherwise the listener might be getting a bit worried, how am I going to remember all of this?
Right, yes.
Just a suggestion.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Sagara. And so the rooms are open, you can go ahead and join. Hi, everyone. So we're so curious to hear, how did that go? What was that like? Does anyone want to share what your experience was? Or any questions, confusions?
see a lot of people are smiling, and I'm not sure if it's nerves or if something happened.
Remember, you might be muted.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Andrea.
Can I? So I did the exercise with somebody I already knew, Georgiana. So it was kind of fun. Hence the smile. Well, I already tested nonviolent communication, but I wasn't using any of the principles. So I was just, you know, doing whatever you asked us to do, and it went rather well with you know, chunks of and bits of information, and we were analyzing communication, which makes it kind of fun. So it went really well. Yeah.
Wonderful to hear. What was it, if you're willing to share, Emily, what was it like to sort of be heard? What was it like? Anything, did you notice anything about that process of being heard?
When you know that you're being really, you know, heard or understood, you're on the tip of your toes. So you mind the way you speak, like how clear you are about things, how you structure whatever it is you have to say. So it's not the turmoil or, you know, the excitement. You're very, to me, I was very concise and very direct. So I could analyze the experience. And so you actually mind how the other person is going to, you know, interpret and explain. Like I wasn't exactly as literal as she was. I was maybe trying to, you know, be even more concise when translating what she said and how she felt about things. And I don't know if that was the point of the exercise or not, but I think that the, you know, the core of whatever we said was there, so it was clear.
Wonderful. Georgiana, are you open to sharing at all? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Yuri.
Oh, I wanted to ask Georgiana if you'd be willing to share what it felt like to hear back what you said in kind of like the more direct, literal way that Andrea was reflecting.
Yes, it was actually, where is she? Ah, you moved, Andrea. It's always so comfortable, right, to be heard, and the way she reflected, and I can't find the word in English. It was not an interpretation. There was no interpretation, but she speaks a beautiful Portuguese with beautiful words, beautiful, really, like her English. So the way she reflected to me was, I even mentioned that, wow, it sounds so much better than when I told her the story. And yeah, it was very, very unique, this moment with Andrea. It felt really good. And it put me at ease, really. It was something I was sharing, something that triggered a little bit of anger and not so a challenging moment. So it was, I could notice in the end how my body was more relaxed, I was more quiet, and yeah, that was my experience.
That's excellent. I'm so happy that even though sharing a challenging story didn't create that kind of agitation that reliving those moments sometimes does, and that it sounds as though you had a very nice, very comfortable moment with Andrea.
Yes, and quickly, just because we know each other, I could notice that when Andrea was sharing her experience, I was very curious to know more things about so it was really had to focus in what she was saying and not wanting to know more about the whole story. So, yeah.
Thank you, Georgiana.
Thanks.
One of the things, if I can just pick up on one of the things that you said, is that you know, I think curiosity is a key part of listening. And one of the things that I noticed with reflective listening is that is there, there are many kinds of curiosity, I think, and one kind of curiosity is, what do I want to know about what they're saying? And the other kind of curiosity is, where do they want to go in what they're saying? And so I think one of the things that the reflection does is you can stay with them as they're in their process of understanding what's happening for them. And of course, later on, there's space to ask questions. But just staying, I think, with the reflection can be really beautiful, because when I am heard this way, I find that I can just go deeper into my experience without my attention being taken away by someone else's questions and other things that come up. So thanks for sharing. Any other experiences, questions, or like difficulties also completely welcome.
If I may say, I'm sorry, my English is very bad, but what I spoke with Daniela. I suppose we were very shy. We don't know each other. Our story, our experience was very short and simple, but it went very well because she reflected exactly what I said, and she told me I did the same, but it was very, very, very small experience, very short. That's it.
Oh, wonderful. How did you feel when you heard the reflection? Like what was your experience of that like?
I shared something very, very not private, but very personal. Something from my my life, my nowadays, the days I'm living now, and I shared feelings. What I really felt was interest, because she gave me an advice in the end, and I suppose it's interest, yes.
Yeah, something profound, I think, about feeling someone else's curiosity and interest in what's happening for us, right? Yuri, is there anything you want to add or say?
No, I think I'm curious, Daniela, what was it like on your end, knowing that this is such a short experience? We gave you, what, 6 minutes to talk. I'm just wondering what it was like to listen in this way, and if it was natural, if it was easier, if it felt different.
For me, I think it's more easy listen and talk about the Maria tell me. Instead, I talk about me. Because for me, it's very difficult to talk with the people strange people for me. So it's very difficult to talk about me with others. So for me, it's more easy in listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to go from meeting somebody for the first time to like divulging your like secrets and everything. So I'm glad that you didn't in this case, because sometimes, especially when we're trying things out for the first time, it's a little bit hard. However, in our class, one thing that we are very careful about doing also is starting with very, very easy to discuss things, and then slowly working our way up towards helping people talking about the more challenging aspects, especially because right now, and something, this is actually what we've seen in our class happen over and over again, is, we'll be talking about reflective listening or any of the number of other skills that we're going to be covering in class, or some of the concepts. And in class, we'll be modeling perhaps later on how to do it when it's a little bit more harder, or if you're talking about with strangers or something, or you're meeting somebody for the first time. And those are very, very high stakes situations. But we'll start very small. And then we've seen as people go through the course, it becomes easier and easier for people to open up to new situations and to become more curious about people, because it's like the more you practice reflective listening on smaller scales, the easier it becomes to do in more challenging situations as well. And so by the end of the class, reflective listening becomes such a second nature thing that starting to approach more personal topics or tricky subject matter, or when someone like Danielle, if someone approaches you and they're saying, Danielle, I don't know you, but I'm going to share with you my life secret and I want you to reflective listen, all of a sudden it's going to be a lot easier to do that. But obviously it's going to be hard on day one, but by the end it'll be a lot easier.
Yeah, we had a student in the first class this is a college classroom, and she said, I don't speak in class. Like, this is the only class I speak in because I'm shy. And by the end of the class, she was just like, I can talk to anybody. I am not afraid of anything anymore. And she had lots of, it was time and practice. So that's something that we were really thrilled by.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm just curious, Hugo, and is it Joanna? Joanna, yeah.
Joanna.
Yeah, well, I was just curious about what was it like in your room. I listened in. I don't speak Portuguese. You're speaking Portuguese. But I could see a lot from just the body language and your tone. And Joanna, by the end of it, you were smiling quite a lot. I don't know if you noticed. So I figured something must have gone well in your room.
Yeah, it was interesting because actually what I noticed was that I needed to be much more focused, thinking about doing the reflective listening. I needed to be much more focused, and even because Hugo was sharing, started by sharing a more private experience, and I got a bit more emotional and started to realizing that I needed really to be focusing on what he was saying. So it was interesting in that sense. And also the part of not being judgmental, just reflecting what he had said. It was really interesting in thinking that I needed to do that, and how was I going to do that, listening, and in order to do that in the right way, in the most non-judgmental way possible. And it was really interesting to put myself in those shoes. And also it was interesting on the other side when Hugo was reflecting what I had shared, that with his share, with what he shared back, I understood that the situation was more clear to me. So it was also very interesting in that point.
That's so beautiful. Go ahead, Yuri.
No, that's excellent, because and I'm just wondering, because you were saying how, if someone shares something that's a little bit more private, and that focus, it's like, oh gosh, I didn't realize I signed up to listen to something like this. I'm just wondering, was it hard to flip into that focus?
It was more challenging. It wasn't hard. It was just more okay. It's not that easy going thing. Okay, he's really sharing something, and actually made me share something also back, because I felt empathized with the situation. And I must say that I had an example, a just random basic example of my life, and I just flipped in the last moment. I changed it because I felt it was interesting to also share something more personal back, because he was open to that. So it was very interesting in that sense.
Yeah, no, that makes me so happy to hear, because on one hand, it is a lot more challenging. In reflective listening, it is a skill, because you have to be listening and speaking in a way that's different than how you normally would do it, right? And you felt it. But I think it's when you become so much more focused and attentive. I think that's when I don't know what it was like for you, Hugo, but for me, that's when that kind of authenticity, and when you can feel that, like, oh, Joanne is listening to me, and I can see in your expression that you're focused on what I have to say. It's that moment that then creates that bridge between us, and helps you get in deeper, and then that builds that kind of, and when we say connection, it's that moment when you realize, oh, I was going to say one thing, but now that we're here, I feel like I can share something more with you. And I think when we're talking about connection, that's part of the feeling in it. And so I'm happy that happened to you.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yes, it was also a challenge, because the not giving advice, or I know this is always our I think natural for us, is like to give some advice when someone is saying something, or to comment on it. And it was also challenging to just simply listen and repeat back. It was interesting. Thank you.
That's wonderful.
One of the things that came to my mind is that I think this is a way of building intimacy, even with strangers, right? And this is the kind of even when it's hard part. Because when one person is open and vulnerable, I think it also, or real, it immediately creates the conditions where another person can be the same. So there's a kind of safety that can be created. And that was my first experience of, oh, I don't need to put up a facade, I don't need to hide myself, because who I am is welcome here. And when that goes both ways, I think, as Yuri said, it really creates a context of connection. I was curious also, Hugo, whether you want to say anything or share what it was like for you. No pressure.
Yes, when I tried to express the situation that occurred this morning, Joanna, saying out loud, made me, because when I was experiencing this situation this morning, I was a bit defensive. And expressing it to Joanna out loud made me reflect the situation in a different way, more objective, more not so defensive. Maybe my wife is right.
Thank you so much for sharing that. One of the things that I find is that the more, if we're in a conflict situation, the more empathy we receive and the more our perspective gets heard and understood, I do find that the defensiveness reduces, but something else happens that I think is quite magical, that because we're not fighting to be heard anymore, we can suddenly see the other person's perspective as well. And so empathy, receiving empathy, I think increases our capacity to also give empathy to the people we're in conflict with. And I kind of think about it as a kind of empathy U-turn, right? So you're like, this person is a problem, this person's a problem, and then you're getting empathy, and suddenly it's like, oh, maybe not, And then there's the gaze turns the other way once one is received and heard well. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And so one thing that, we've talked about in our class, we've mentioned how each of our classes, we want you to start each section with a moment of connection and then getting into the experience and into the nuances. And I hope that's what we were actually able to do with you today, even in like the 6 minutes that we had you do an activity for. But that feeling like, oh, this is interesting, it's challenging, but there's something interesting happening here. That I hope you were able to get a feeling for that, because when we talk about connection, that's what we're talking about. And so then afterwards, when we're able to discuss some of the nuances of like, hey, actually it was interesting because when I was doing this, I felt myself become less defensive. Oh, I started realizing, I could share something new. And talking about nuances on that level and start analyzing details after we've had that experience, that's basically how we structure each of our classes, constantly building and building, not just reflective listening, but in terms of a whole slew of other skills and other abilities that all stack up together, that by the end of the class, you sort of realize it's not really about each of those skills, but it's actually just being able to recognize what it feels like to be connected to yourself, connected to another person, and recognizing how do you actually build it in any situation that you want it to be in.
And one of the most amazing things for me is that, it was a question and it's now become a reality, which is that feeling of being heard and understood, and that feeling of curiosity and care. Like, what if you could feel like that when the other person is being judgmental, saying things to you don't want to hear, and still have that thread of connection alive, or you're sharing something that would have otherwise gone very badly, but to speak in the way that you spoke and share what's really real, and have the experience that the situation can completely transform. So that's the kind of vision for the course. And it's something that we've seen over and over again. So Sagara, I don't know what would be best to do right now. We are happy to hang out and problem solve or troubleshoot if anyone has an actual situation they want support with. I'm very, very happy to stay back, but we are at time. So what do you think is best, Sagara?
Well, let's see what people want. So you're opening the possibility of someone bringing a live situation and you kind of working with them.
Yes.
Would that be the case?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a possibility of a freebie coaching kind of situation. We see you working with someone. Is that?
Yes.
Or we go to get on with our lives. Well.
Or just another possibility, if you had any other questions either about the course, about what we've just experienced in today's session, that's also okay. Any questions about life, the universe, or anything, we'll try to handle, but we don't have every answer, but we'll try to see what we come up with. Or if you have any questions about the class that's coming up. But also, yes, if anyone has any situations they would like some coaching on, that they would feel comfortable sharing, we can put our minds together, and so we can make it.
And while you're thinking, I just put in the chat, if anyone wants to learn more about the course or bring a situation in your life and you're not sure if you want to take the course or not, I offer hour-long free sessions, coaching sessions. So I pasted a link in the chat, and you can click on that link, you can schedule a session with me, you can go into your situation, and we can talk about the course as well. But meanwhile, if any situation comes up, we're happy to do that now as well.